And now, in our final ski month video, we turn our attention to the running game. We've got a total of 5 plays to look at when we're breaking down Kyle Shanahan's very impressive run game. And we're going to start with the base of the soup. We're going to start with some outside zone action. We're also going to talk about a couple different ways in which they run the outside zone. We're going to move to the counter play, which is a great complement to the outside zone and part of the increase in gap runs that we saw from Kyle Shanahan in 2019. And then we'll close out with Old Faithful, the power run, something that the Niners did run with a certain degree of effectiveness in 2019 as well. And this isn't going to be just a whole basically replay of the Packers game, but you will see the Packers feature prominently a couple of times because the Niners completely destroyed them. And so that's where we go to first. They're one of their most impressive plays of, or one of the most impressive running performances of the season against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. This is from the second quarter, about 5:35 in. And this is going to be really their base outside zone from 21 personnel with Raheem Mostert picking up 34 yards.
A nice clip. And hey, we at least hit both of the Packers games, right? They weren't all from the championship game. The other play that we've got coming up here is going to be from the Week 12 matchup. But yeah, so we want to kind of start with outside zone, and I think this is probably among the more common versions of their outside zone, which is going to be 21 personnel, right? So I've got 2 running backs in the backfield here. I've got Kittle as my 1 tight end. I've got 2 wide receivers split out of the frame. So I'm in just kind of base personnel here, which we know they spend a lot of time in, especially relative to everyone else in the NFL. And so this is kind of a pretty common version of the outside zone that we're going to get. So we'll let it run from this view again and kind of go back and talk about some of these things.
Yeah, so if you remember from the pod, the first thing we talked about was making sure that you get double team blocks at the point of attack. And that's what you see initially from the 49ers, getting a pretty good double team there on 90 before you see Juszczyk go in there and be a lead blocker through the hole. And the Packers are in nickel personnel, so you've got a safety basically playing in the box as a linebacker, and the Niners are able to take care of whatever the Packers throw at them pretty easily, and Raheem Mostert chews up the rest.
Yeah, you're getting this like 3 safety look. So you've got, my 2 safeties here, but then I've got a third guy that's down in the box here that's essentially playing as another inside linebacker. And so, yeah, again, we want to get combination blocks wherever we can, and we're going to always remember have a linebacker that we're working up to off of those combo blocks. So once they kind of controlled the first level defender, we've got the defensive lineman where we want him to be. One of those guys is going to come off and go up for the designated linebacker. And again, that linebacker now can be assigned a whole number of ways, right? Depending on how they want to categorize this front and the personnel and formation that they have on the field. So it's not always going to be to the same guy. So like, for instance, just from this look, depending on the call, you could see this double team here. Maybe they decide they want to work to this guy. In this case, they end up working back to Blake Martinez here as the other linebacker, and they allow Juice to be able to pick up the third safety that's in the box there. So they have a bunch of different calls and techniques for them to be able to change things up for how they actually execute a lot of these blocks. And so that's kind of the first thing there you can see. And this is really, I think, the block that does set this play up for success, right? Is they really nail this combo block. Because the next point, right, is that everybody is looking to try to reach essentially the play side of their designated defender. So by play side, this is a run to the right. We've got obviously Mostert back there heading to the right side. So the play side is going to be this right side shoulder for every one of these offensive linemen, right? So they want to get to that shoulder of their defender so that they can hopefully seal everybody back this way on the defense, and you open up that lane for Mostert on the outside there. So that's kind of what they're aiming to do in this base version. You can see starting with that double team block, they do a great job of knocking 90 inside there initially and helping to open up that hole for Mostert.
Yeah, and you can see Mostert getting to his target. I mean, we talked about the target being the tight end area, and you can see him running out that way, and then he sees the combo block over here, and then eventually he's going to cut up right up the field. He's got a couple, honestly,
not the straightest line right there. Let's try that again.
Yeah,
not also outside leg of the tight end is what we're looking for there. Drawing's not to scale.
Yeah, this is an early Parkinson's test apparently for David Newman. But so you've got him running to his target. You've got a combo block, and if you remember from Shanahan's nomenclature, because that's going to be the second opportunity to run that combo block, it is going to be double, right? So single and then double. You've got triple and quad. In this case, that combo block is going to be in that double area, and everything lines up exactly how you want it. This is a beautiful run. You see the center get the reach. You see the combo block work, move up to the second level. Juice is going to make his block. Everyone does their job beautifully. And all Raheem Mostert has to do is make sure he doesn't screw it up, put on the Jets, and run right upfield.
Yeah. I mean, this, like, when you kind of pause it here, right, this is perfect. Every single one of these defenders is on the back side of the play, right? Every one of these offensive linemen have been able to get to the shoulder that they're targeting. And with the exception of Juice, Juice as a coming in as a backfield blocker and picking up a second level guy, that's going to be a little bit different. It's going to depend on the leverage of that defender to begin with. And so it's going to be kind of on the back to make the correct read and read that leverage, which Mostert does a great job of here and getting inside that block. So yeah, just an incredibly well executed base version of their outside zone.
Yeah, and it's good to see how these blocks work together, because if you don't get McGlinchey working up to Blake Martinez, you've got the safety who's basically trying to force the action back inside to where he's got help. He's doing the right thing, right? He's kind of going out, making the running back cut back inside. Yeah. He's expecting a linebacker to be flowing over the top and actually, make the tackle. But Blake Martinez can't, because he's got a big old Mike McGlinchey in the way, and that's what creates that perfect alley. So both of those blocks have to happen effectively for that run to work, and it works perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, that's really perfect. So like the two guys defensively that are really in a bad spot here, as you can see. So this guy's really got the B gap. When you're in this kind of front here where you've got, which is a bare front. So I've got all three of my interior linemen for the 49ers are covered, right? So I've got a guy over the guard, guy over the center, guy over the other guard here. With that type of alignment, a lot of times this linebacker here doesn't have a specific gap assignment. He's going to kind of flow to the ball. And especially with a backfield blocker, because whenever you have a backfield blocker, you can, as an offense, you're effectively, wherever you send him, creating another gap, right? So they're sending Juice over here. So now instead of just one gap between the tight end and my right tackle, I've got two, so he's going to flow to that other gap. And so those two players right there, so 90 gets reached out of his B gap. Now he's in the A gap here. And Martinez never gets over the top. He tries to undercut McGlinchey and sneak inside, and McGlinchey does a great job of controlling that and basically taking him out of the play.
So now we get to the second outside zone play that we'll break down, and this is going to come week 8 against the Panthers. It's the first quarter. There's 11:49 left. It's 2nd and 10 in this case, and Tevin Coleman picks up 41 yards. This allegedly is the play that puts Luke Kuechly into retirement. Because this is a play where George Kittle just basically drives my man literally into retirement. That's the zip code. That's the zip code that he's in. He drives him in. He drives him into retirement. But this play's a little different because it's a shotgun snap, so that changes the look and feel, even though this is still very much outside zone.
And let's get back to the end zone view here, where it's a little bit better. Yeah, no, don't spend a lot of time in the end zone view always in pass plays, but definitely is something that's very helpful in the run game. So yeah, looking, I mean, it's hard not to start. Let's just take a moment here to look at this Kittle block. So Kittle is right here. He's going to head up to Kuechly, who's the middle linebacker there, and really just kind of take him for a ride. And then right there, that's the couch. That was the couch he put him on in his home for retirement.
It's a $75 million block. That's what that is.
Just fantastic. But yeah, so the main thing here, right, is it's a lot of the same stuff that we were looking at in the previous play, right? So you see this initial play side step, right, which I don't know if we called attention to in the previous play enough, but you see basically everybody here, right, in that first moment, right, everybody moving to the left. Always a pretty surefire way for to recognize zone. Even the right tackle here, who is, I believe, Brunskill on this play, because they're in shotgun, one of the things that you'll see is this backside tackle will often either sell some sort of pass set, or if they're going to run an RPO, which they don't on this play, but he might actually just pass block here, or he at least wants to not give this guy as free of a lane right to the quarterback, right? So you see him actually not. I think in a more typical situation, under center situation, you'd be looking for him to get up and get to this linebacker here. But even he, who's going to work back and kind of hinge back out to the defensive end, that first step is still inside, right, with the left foot. And so you get that kind of whole movement in unison from everybody that's on the line of scrimmage there to the left. And then we're just kind of working, again, to the play side shoulder of our guys. We get excellent reach blocks here and here, being able to get those guys sealed back inside. And then I get Kittle working up to one linebacker. I get, who is it there? The center, I believe. Yeah, is working back up to 56, who is never really a factor anyway, so he doesn't have to kind of pick him up. And so, yeah, just a very well executed play again, but just out of a different look. This time, shotgun, single back, no fullback that's inserting here.
Yeah, and those reach blocks, I mean, the agility that it takes in order to do that, and those are two very, very good looking reach blocks, especially right there on 53. I mean, that is beautiful, just walling them off, putting them down on the ground. That's a pancake block right there. And this is why Shanahan prefers smaller, more athletic linemen, because they need to be able to eat up that space in a phone booth really quickly and flip their hips around. You need an athlete in order to do that. And so when you think about, players like Colton McKivitz, he's going to be in that more athletic mold. That's why the Niners go after players like that. But it's Kittle who really ultimately is the star of the play here. And the shotgun formation here, it changes the kind of route of the running back a little bit. It kind of makes him go a little flatter and wider, which is important for how the play looks. But at the end of the day, he's still got his target that he's running towards. He's still running towards that tight end. And let's see if Newman can draw a straight line again. Let's test
do it. Ready? And yeah, so this is the reason, right? So the reason he takes a flatter path is now not only he's at a different starting alignment, really, is all it comes down to. So Garoppolo is about 5 yards deep here. So usually the backs you're looking at about 7.5 yards. So he's going to be, normally toes somewhere around there, directly behind Garoppolo on your typical under center play, like the previous one that we looked at. So it's a little bit more of a direct path. Bam. That is about as good as it gets, folks, as far as line drawing to the outside leg of the tight end there. So instead, what he's got to do is he's got to come on a much flatter path, and then he's going to kind of pick up on that path once he can join it, right? So a little bit different from shotgun, but it's the same sort of thing as far as what he's reading, what he's looking at, which is going to be, what happens on that combo box. So that first one, which doesn't have to be much of a combo because Kittle doesn't have to spend a lot of time on him because they are essentially slanting these guys in here, and they're going to have Kittle come up over the top. So Kittle doesn't have to pay much attention to that defensive end. And it makes things a little bit easier for the guard and tackle there because they have what started as like very tough initial alignments to be able to get these reach blocks. Like if this guy was going to really sell hard to the B gap, he was going to be here in the C gap. This would be a long way for them to travel, right, to get those reaches, but they get the benefit of the slant kind of working right into them a little bit. It makes their job easier here, but it's still this guy that the back is reading, right? So he wants to read his leverage. If the defender is outside, he knows that he has to come inside of that block, and then he's just going to keep working his way down gap by gap. But here, we obviously know that he gets put inside on the reach, and so I see a clean outside path, and I'm going to take it outside of that block.
Now we get to the third play. It's going to be week 13 against the Ravens. And this is going to be another play where you see Juszczyk in the formation, but this is going to include a type of block that we see Shanahan run often. It's going to be a Sift block. It's a block where a tight end or sometimes a fullback works across the flow of the play and blocks someone on the backside. You often see this in a play called split zone, where you are basically trying to create a lane up the middle or a cutback lane for the zone play to hit. And the Sift block is really going to open up a lot of different things in terms of play action. It's really a staple of some of the keeper slide stuff that we talked about on one of the previous videos. But this is something that Shanahan likes to do often. And against the Ravens, it worked really, really well as part of the overall outside zone package.
Yeah, so we'll let it run in full here. But that motion from Juice, again, you should recognize if you watch the the video where we talked about those play action, those keeper pass concepts that they've got. This is that same action, right? Where he's going to leak out here on the pass and then just head into the flat instead of blocking the end man on the line of scrimmage there. So this is really the type of play that sets up that action in their play action stuff. But again, let's get to the end zone view here. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, the generic version of this. So if you ever hear the term like split zone, this is really what it's referring to, where it's, again, normally I have everybody working to the play side. So everybody in this case would be moving to the right. But in this case, Juice is going to work to the backside. So I've still got everybody on the line of scrimmage that's taking this initial, here, the initial movement to the right. I got that initial step there, but Juice is going to work.
Yeah, you can see Juice just like the tackle on the other side, right? This is the foundation of the zone play. Everyone moves in one direction. And this is important to note because it does play into one of the gap schemes that we're going to break down right after this play. But everyone moves in one direction first, and then he comes back around and comes back to that backside guy.
Yeah, so the one other thing, so difference, on the surface, other than that split block, this for the offensive line and tight end here is going to look very similar to the previous plays, and especially that first one where we're again in 21 personnel. But the difference here, and this is again gets into some of the calls and adjustments that they can make to the play, is that not everybody is trying to reach on this play. So not everyone's trying to get around, and it's really how they want to handle 45 here. So you can see McGlinchey will come over and help Kittle really try to knock that guy outside so that Kittle can control him and work him, off to the right-hand side there so that they can plan on hitting it inside of that block. And so McGlinchey actually does two things that are excellent here. One, he does a great job helping out Kittle to start with and knocking that guy wide so that Kittle can get, better leverage on him and control that block. And then his linebacker, so the way they have this set here is 58 is the linebacker that combination block is working to. But 58 tries to kind of like cut back inside. And so McGlinchey, you can see him here, eyes again, looking like where did my linebacker go? And actually does just a fantastic job of like redirecting, coming all the way across to a different gap and picking that guy up. Because, I mean, honestly, without him doing that, Fort kind of jumps inside maybe a little bit too hard right here that takes him out. But like, a better play by the linebacker there, and if McGlinchey doesn't recognize this is getting blown up in the backfield. So I thought this was just a really awesome job for McGlinchey to be able to recognize that and show the athleticism to get back across another full gap essentially and find that guy and pick up the block.
Quentin Nelson isn't the only Notre Dame lineman that can work backwards and go into another gap and block a guy and clear his running back for some space. We've got a Notre Dame lineman that can do the same kind of
this combination block here, I just actually noticed as was running through it again, is a good example, I think, of another adjustment. So again, normally we said the base version, you expect them to control this guy first, and then one of those guys will come off, in this case for this linebacker, a little bit late once that's happened. But here you actually see like very little help on 71. From Richburg there. So actually runs up, or is that Richburg? No, I don't think that's Richburg. I don't know. I should know that, but yeah, whatever. So you can see him like, so they have different calls for basically whether they're just going to like give that lineman a free run up to the second level, or you might just give like a little bit of a chip to that first level defender, something that says like, hey, Tomlinson needs to know that he's not going to have a lot of help on this block so that they can get the other blocker up to the second level to get the linebacker. So you can see an example of that here where he's not really spending much time on 71 at all, looking straight away to get up to the linebacker, and then only comes back late to help once he sees that linebacker is kind of bailed out backside and isn't going to be a factor on the play.
It is Richburg, incidentally.
Okay, I couldn't remember if he was 58 or 59. On there, and I couldn't also see for sure which one of those this was. Yeah,
he is indeed 58, but it's good work there, and McGlinchey does some of the heavy lifting there. I think it's important to note, and you mentioned it earlier, where it is not always that you want to kind of wash everyone out, or not always that you want to kind of break or kind of get on their play side shoulder. Depending on the call, in the world of outside zone, you can do different things to different players to try to target certain spaces. And I think this is outside zone, but it still ends up looking quite a bit differently. Now, we talked a lot about the first step, for these individual players and why that's important. And you saw a couple of instances where they all stepped to the play side first. This is important when you begin to see how Shanahan is beginning to lean on other types of run concepts in order to find success in the run game. And this play in week 3 against the Steelers is a counter play. What we'll look at first, this is fourth quarter, actually, with about 9:21 left. It's 2nd and 5. The Niners are actually trailing by 3 points in this case. Mostert breaks this for 19 yards. Initially, what I want you to look at after the play runs the first time is the first step of the majority of the linemen. It's going to look a lot like outside zone because they're all going to step in one direction. And when you look at what Juice is doing, it looks a little bit like that Sift block where he's kind of coming back to the backside. And so you're getting different keys based on what player you're staring at. And it's a different run entirely called counter.
So we'll let it run again in full. But if you're paying attention, you will see basically this whole right side here. And even to the backfield action, right? So the backfield action is definitely a key part of this setup. But everything looks, with the exception of if you kind of ignore this guy, everything looks like an outside zone play this direction, right? So you're going to see the center, everybody from the center, over here to Kittle, all their initial movement right there, right? All the left. Same thing with the backfield action. So Juice and Mostert here, everybody's stepping left initially. And so basically for a lot of the defenders, right, everybody that's not necessarily keen on maybe, this guard here, they're seeing a very similar picture to outside zone. Even Garoppolo, right, the way he opens to this. So when it's outside zone, he's going to open to the direction of the play, right? So he's going to open up his left shoulder, drop his left foot, and come back. But then everything flips. So Garoppolo is going to switch the ball the other hand. Mostert works his counter action back. And now I'm following 2 lead blockers back the complete opposite direction, right? So as an outside zone team, you can see how this would be very useful to show a similar picture, right, to what you do as your base run concept. But then suddenly we're going to hit it on the opposite side. And in this case, it works out to a very big play.
Yeah, and even Juice is going to be a player that you see make that kind of action often, where he kind of runs one way and then comes back along the backside on the Sift block to block that backside defensive end. So even if you're keying in on Juice, he's not going to necessarily always take you to the ball. I think one of the critiques of Harbaugh was that basically if you followed the fullback, you followed the ball. Wherever Bruce Miller was is where that run was going to go. With Shanahan, it's very different. He's going to send his fullback a lot of different places, and you can't always key in on the fullback to see where the run is going to go. In this case, though, he is one of the pullers, effectively, that creates 2 pullers into the play side, which is going to create extra gaps. And that's why this is called a gap scheme, because rather than kind of attacking a man or blocking a man in your zone based on certain rules, you were trying to create extra gaps by moving people into the play side and basically overpowering that side of the defense. And that's what they try to do here. And in this case, the overpowering success is Mostert for 19 yards.
So if you remember, there were 2 kind of components of these gap plays, right, that were pretty similar in both this play and then the power play that we're going to show after this. And that's first, my play side blockers are blocking down, right? So that's basically everybody here. These 4 guys who are all, the ones that we pointed out that look like they're, selling outside zone to the left, they're actually blocking down inside. Everybody wants to move this way, right? And they want to essentially try to create a wall off of Kittle, and everybody that's inside of that, they would like to keep there, right? Is kind of the ideal thing. So you're going to see the double team here, and they're going to work to a backside linebacker there. He's going to work there. He's going to work there. So everybody working toward a backside defender. So that's kind of the first component of it. And then, like you mentioned, with the 2 pullers, right? So with counter, I've always got, and actually power works this way too, that one of the guys just isn't a puller if you're doing it out of 2-back. But there's always essentially what's called a trapper and a wrapper is the way this goes. So in this case, the trapper, meaning they want to take a guy inside out, right? So they want to hit him and make sure that guy stays to the outside. So that's Tomlinson in this case. It's always going to be the first guy through is the trapper. And so he wants to take a path to the inside shoulder and make sure that he keeps that defender outside at least long enough for the back to be able to get through. And then the second puller is going to be the wrapper. And so he's going to be the one that comes around, meaning he's wrapping around Kittle's block, and he's going to be looking for this other linebacker that's freed up there. So in that case, this is juice on this play. So he kind of comes in, takes that path, falls in line behind Tomlinson as the second puller here. Now, he doesn't really have to do much wrapping because this linebacker is drifting pretty hard outside. So he just kind of targets him and makes sure to get a hat on him. But, if this linebacker were staying inside a little bit more, he would wrap right around this double team block and look to pick that guy up.
The trapper and the wrapper. Things, again, they don't really name things super inventively, and it helps when it rhymes because you've got to remember a lot of crap when you're playing football. And so trapper and wrapper, when you're talking about counter, something you should never forget. So let's move to the final play in the series, which is going to be the fifth play. And this is a power play. And we started with counter first because it shows a lot of the same elements of outside zone, but it's a gap scheme that works very, very well off of a lot of the zone action that you're going to see Shanahan run. Power is going to do something similar. And while we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it on the pod, it was something the Niners ran to great effect and with great success in 2019. And so we're going to look at a Week 12 matchup against the Packers. They're the bookend for the run game video because really they were the bricks that made up the house that Shanahan built his run game on last year. And in this case, you're looking at 11 personnel inside the 2-minute warning. The Packers are expecting some kind of a pass. They're super light, and all of a sudden they get punished for being light inside.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at it. And again, yeah, this is a play. It is important to, I think, mention that situationally, like this is a situation where the Packers, I think, are expecting pass, right? They basically have this pass rush front here. Everybody's wide. So they've got, their two technically D tackles, right? And using air quotes there are very wide outside the guards. And then I've got my two ends. I've got probably my two best pass rushers in Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith over here to the same side. So this is very much a look from the Packers that says, like, we're expecting you to throw the ball. So that does play into the success of this play for the 49ers. And
the Niners give you a we're going to pass the ball look as well. They're in shotgun. It's 3 wide. Yep. 11 personnel is still the most highly used personnel for the Niners because it is league wide, but it's not such a huge delta like it is for most other teams where it becomes basically their base formation. This is a pass look. And so everything is aligning for the Packers to be like, okay, cool. We're going to prep for the pass. They're going to pass. And this is just, again, the beauty of Kyle Shanahan saying, yeah, well, we like to run out of pass sets because we can.
Right. And I mean, honestly, you get this kind of look and it's just like it's free yardage in a lot of ways, but we can still see a lot of the same elements, right? So again, we can start with kind of our play side group of blockers there. Everybody's going to be working down back to the right side away from where the run is designed to go. So I'm going to get Kittle up on the linebacker. I'm going to get this double team block here. They don't really have anybody to work to. I mean, it would technically be this guy, but he's not really going to ever be a factor or be involved in the play. I'm going to get my center working back. And then here's going to be my one puller is going to be the right guard. And so when you're dealing with single back power, I don't have my second guy, right? So I just have the trapper in this case. There's no wrapper. You're not only removing a guy from your backfield, but if you're going to run this, you're likely removing a player from the box. So you don't really need that second guy. If there were, what would happen, so if you imagine this was 2 back, if I had a fullback right here, the fullback would stay play side the entire time. So he's not technically a puller, but he would be my trapper. He would be the one that is kind of kicking out the end guy. And then my guard would wrap around the double team block here. So that's how they would set up power if you're doing it from 2 back. But here we're just getting, again, the single back look. So I just have the one puller. And again, everything kind of starts with that double team. You get a ton of movement here from these guys, as they should, on a player that is typically an edge player, not really someone that's spending a lot of time on the interior defending the run.
You're underselling this with a ton of movement, though. Like they basically put him on the other end of the Minfield logo.
it's pretty good. It's a lot of fun.
Not as good from person here, but he does just enough. He's the puller, and he's going to get stonewalled pretty well. And this is actually probably a really good job from the defender for Green Bay, but person does just enough to get to his inside shoulder which is what he needs to do to make sure that it neutralizes the arm of the defender from kind of reaching out and slapping a foot or grabbing a leg or something like that. And Mostert's able to navigate through the trash and get some gain.
Right. So with his block, I mean, the one thing that could kind of throw a wrench in this, right, is so we know that Mostert wants to hit inside of his block. So again, person's taking an inside out path, which is perfect, which is what you want. That gives this space here, makes it free and clear for the back to be able to get through. The one thing that would kind of blow this up is if you let this defender get inside, right, then suddenly he's right in the path of the back. And all of this good work from Kittle and the double team and everybody else up front is kind of all for naught. The one thing, that person does, he gets squeezed a lot. So you can see Mostert having to kind of make this adjustment in his path right there and kind of get a little bit more directly upfield before he can really get outside of Kittle's block there, which is where he wants to end up. So he gets squeezed a little bit, but still, again, a nice job of taking the correct path, making sure that if you're going to lose, you at least lose to the correct shoulder so that defender can't really be a factor on the play.
And then it's just another gain against the Packers over and over and over again. The run game and the Niners against the Packers, whether it's running backs or quarterbacks, seems to always moments. It's some definitely good moments. That about does it for this video, the final Ski Month Patreon video for this month. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in. If you've watched all of the series thus far, thank you very, very much. If you haven't seen all of our other videos that talk about a lot of Shanahan's favorite pass concepts, as well as how to identify coverages, how to attack coverages, I think it's some of the best stuff that we've done so far. So definitely go back and watch those if you haven't yet. But as always, thanks again for tuning in, and especially as always, doubly so, go Niners.